Yes, thank you, drivers. Thank you, Jack, for jumping in when I forgot how a mute button works. Yes, podium interviews done. Race 2 on the way. And as we've said, it is a full reversed grid. So, Paul Laramie, who finished last in the first race, starts on pole position alongside the black and red car of John Jones, with Kyle Felvers and Kenny Press on the second row, Mark Hughes and Brad Smith there on row number 3. So some interesting drivers towards the very front of the field, and of course some very interesting drivers towards the back, because we've got our podium finishers from that race: Elliot Dalton-Ayre, Scott Bugner and Max Edmondson, starting 20th, 21st and 22nd respectively. So as we approach the start then of our second race of the night, this, I think, is set to be a very entertaining race. It's a narrow track. It's not easy to make progress. If something goes wrong in front of you, it's not all that easy to avoid it either. So fingers crossed for a clean start and a clean 20 minutes of racing as round number 6 of the VRRC Civic Cup gets underway. Now, away they go. Good start from pole position by the looks of it for Paul Laramie. In fact, quite an even start there for all of the drivers at the pointy end of the grid. John Jones trying to go around the outside of Laramie through Old Hull Corner, though. That's brave on cold tyres. He runs a bit wide over the grass, but he'll have the momentum down the avenue towards Denton's, and then he'll have the inside line for Cascade. So John Jones looking to try and go through into the race lead. Laramie having none of it, though, stands his ground on the outside. They're still door to door, leaving each other plenty of room. Kyle Felvers and Kenny Press behind trying to get involved, but it's Jones that will lead the pack down towards the island hairpin.
Yeah, they've not allowed anybody to get away, have they, the rest of this field? As John Jones goes very wide, he's trying to, I think, square off the corner, but I don't think he's been able to do it. As there's a spinner, Mark Hughes is one of them. Another driver is, well, bouncing all over the place. I think that's Kenny Press, unfortunately. He's trying to rejoin, but it's a very narrow part of the circuit. So John Jones still leads, even though he missed the apex completely at Island. Carl Felvers couldn't get the run on him as we look further back with Dave Buki just in front of Will Redford and just behind his dad, Mark Redford, as well. So plenty of sort of stories in there as Nicky Taylor bounces across the grass, as we've seen so often tonight. Whenever they even touch a curb, it's quite remarkable how sort of rigid these Civics are as they go up towards Druids for the first time. A lot of drivers side by side, which is always a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, Andy Carroll there to the outside line. That's Will Redford up the inside of him. And Josh Martin now tries to fill the gap as well in the Motus One liveried car. Elbows Carroll wide and Axelson's off. Eric Axelson, I saw him exiting stage right in the background. You can just see the dark green number 75 car of Eric Axelson, who I believe has made fairly significant contact with the barriers at Druid. So he may be damaged, certainly. Maybe out of the race altogether. We'll wait and see. John Jones leads a very eventful opening lap of the race. Contact further back.
Yeah, Max Bird, I saw him getting squirrely. Amazingly, I think he's the only driver that got involved. And the reason I jumped in is because I thought it was going to be absolutely massive. Speaking of massive, this battle between Joel Lask and there's Josh Martin off on... Well, he did make heavy contact with the barriers. We saw that, as I believe it was Andy Carroll was involved with that as well. I was about to comment on Joel Lask and Jordan Brennan basically being, again, stuck to the hip for the majority, for the beginning of this race, but actually there's battles all over the place as Carl Felvers goes to a race-leading move around the outside of Ireland. That's left the door open for Brad Smith to go into second place and now challenge for that race lead.
Yes, he does. He might even have an overlap already. No, John Jones managing to hang on to it well here. Now, as long as he places the car in all the right places, it won't be that easy for Brad Smith to get through. Smith sends it up the inside into Hislop's, though. Brilliant move. And John Jones sensibly didn't try and fight that too hard. So Brad Smith gets the lead. Felvers second. Jones there in third. Chris Shepherd comes through in fourth place. Dave Buki up there in fifth, looking to try and continue his podium form that he showed a week ago at Thruxton. Then it's Mark and Will Redford, who, of course, for a race victory in our first reversed grid race of the season back at Brands Hatch, and they're both inside the top 10 this time around. Kyle Felvers, though, in second place on the rear bumper of Brad Smith. This is Felvers' best opportunity this season for a win, and he knows it. He draws level with Smith, but that's the outside line into Lodge Corner. He won't try and go right around the outside there. Instead, he'll try and square off the corner, get to the throttle earlier, carry better speed over the hill, and that is exactly what Kyle Felvers has done. That was brilliant racecraft. He's bought himself a ticket to the inside line now at Old Hall Corner, and he surely will go through. Brad Smith, though, we know there's grip on the outside line. There isn't when you get nerfed out wide, though. Felvers will get the lead. Smith down to second place, and John Jones now has an awful lot of pressure from Chris Shepherd and Dave Buki for third.
Personally, I don't think Brad Smith... Oh, Dave Buki is not in third position. He's in a tie wall and actually hit a marshal there. We do always thank the Orange Army, but luckily we don't have to take him to hospital on that one. Carl Felvers then, I don't think Brad Smith really has much of a case in terms of... I don't think he really got nerfed out wide too much, but I think he's just pushed Carl Felvers through the island hairpin and maybe we'll get him back here. But as they went through the first quarter, they were pretty much door to door and Carl Felvers had the apex. Smith just ends up running a little bit wide, but it looked like there was a little bit of a push on the apex there, which allowed Brad Smith to get back up the inside of Felvers, who's now going for that, again, side-by-side action at the Hislop chicane. As Smith goes wide, I thought he was going to ruin the run, but in fact, they're still there. I can't quite believe they haven't crashed yet, Andy, but Felvers is now in the race lead.
Very rarely do you see cars go side by side through the entire Nickelbrook complex without making contact, but that's exactly what they did. Oh, John Jones over the curbs as they went towards Druid's corner, rattled down the side of Brad Smith's car, and that is absolutely music to the ears of Kyle Felvers, who immediately finds a 1 second advantage over the squabbling pair for second place. Smith still second, Jones third. Fourth is Will Redford now, bringing his father Mark through after Chris Shepherd there in sixth had a moment at Druid's corner. So the Redfords moving up the order together. They might just have the pace here to challenge the top three.
Yeah, and I was trying to have a look back and see how our podium sitters from race 1 got on, but to be honest, there's too much action that's going on. Edmondson's ahead of Bugno there, 8th and 9th for Jordan Brennan in 10th, by the way, if you are curious, but just look at the action that's on in front of you right now. It's absolutely brilliant with Mark Redford just behind Will. You said that Will had been dragging him along. Well, now they could potentially go for a podium position move because John Jones, who may well find himself at this point in the race, start to become a cork in the bottle as the front two have pulled away quite significantly. I did like the fact that John Jones wasn't silly during that period of the race because there could have been a massive pile-up between himself, the other two, Carl and Brad, and then obviously cause a massive 20-car pileup because once you start crashing at the Hislop chicane, there's not really much you can do, especially as it's a bit of a blind corner and the cutout area, the cut-through area, is not that easy on a set of course to get through either. It's pretty much blocked off by tyre barriers. So yeah, nice to see everybody's been sensible. However, we may well end up seeing a bit of contact. We did sort of see contact. We didn't see a big crash though, luckily. It's Paul Laramie rejoined safely.
Yeah, that was Andy Dorman, I think, who whacked the tyre stack in the red and white car. So Dorman now in danger of losing 13th place to Reece Bell. But again, that could have been quite a lot worse through his lops. Bell on the inside line there in the sort of leopard print car, but bravery in bucket loads for Dorman around the outside means that he actually manages to hang on to that 13th spot as they head for Lodge Corner. John Jones is sideways. That takes him out of the podium battle and then further contact with Nicky Taylor as he rejoins. That's a real shame for John Jones. He finds himself pointing the wrong way in a dangerous position, exiting Lodge. I was about to make the point that his best finish of the season so far was a 12th place in this equivalent race, the reverse grid race at Brands Hatch. He was on course to better it, and not anymore, isn't there, because he dropped pretty much to the back of the pack. Now, this is the battle that has all triggered, because as he bounced off Nicky Taylor, so it delayed a few other drivers. Chris Shepherd there is just ahead of the yellow car of Taylor, the green car of Mark Redford, and look who joins the party now. Championship contender and 3 times a race winner, Max Edmondson. No one so far has managed to win both races in a night. You'd have put money, Jack, on it not happening at Oulton Park, but Max Edmondson doing his best to prove us wrong. Yeah,
12.5 minutes. You can't really write it off because that's the race leader in Carl Felvers, who doesn't like front-wheel drive cars. Brad Smith and Will Redford haven't necessarily had the pace. And as Mark Redford and Nicky Taylor go side by side, that may well leave a door open for the top 3 in race 1 to just nicely slide on through. Speaking of sliding on through, Mark Redford gets very sideways. And again, that will leave the door open. How can the podium sitters get on with this one? Edmondson, in fact, I think all 3 of them will get past Mark Redford, but they're not going to get past Nicky Taylor just yet. We know how hard it is to get past Nicky Taylor, as they're going to try it, though. Straight away, Edmondson up to the inside. Oh, Druids, and there's a touch on the outside of the grass there by Mark Redford. I think he pretty much did that to try and cause a bit of self-preservation, because otherwise it may have been a lot of contact, but Nicky Taylor just basically gets off the throttle, hits the brake early and says, you know what, I don't need to be involved with this fight. You guys go ahead, I'll enjoy myself back here.
Because Nicky Taylor is not a championship contender. He knows what it's like to be a championship contender and have guest drivers or drivers who are only doing a part season getting involved and ruining your championship. He didn't want that to happen, so sensibly there, I think, backed out of that battle, but that does now put Edmondson 5th, 6th, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, then, of the podium finishers from race 1. Remember, he finished 3rd in that first race. He's the one that's not making the progress, stuck down in 11th. Now, that is at the back of this group, and that might now become 10th as Nicky Taylor rattles out wide over the exit of Cascades. But yes, he's not making quite the progress that Edmondson and Bugner are. Now, will they continue to work together, these two, to try and catch the cars ahead? As you made the point, Jack, we still have over half the race to go, just under 11 minutes left here, and they're only, 5 seconds or so off the race lead. They've got a few cars to pass, and at the moment, it looks like they're not working together because Edmondson defends that 5th place from Bugner into the chicane. That will lose them time, though.
Yeah, they're not teammates, are they? But whenever we do an interview with them, they do tend to say that they're working together and somewhat. So I'm not sure whether they're in constant communication or whether they're going to be potentially, just in between races or during practice. They practice together. I'm not entirely sure. But either way, it'll be very interesting to see how they approach this as Brad Smith is approaching the tyre barrier very quickly, unfortunately. And that was contact with Will Redford. So that is big news because that's one of the top 3 already out of the way for the drivers who were chasing them down. And that's big shame because Brad Smith was driving so well.
Yep, that is what they call a freebie, isn't it, in the industry, as Max Edmondson, Scott Bugner, Jordan Brennan don't have to even think about overtaking Brad Smith now because Will Redford has dealt with him for them. There was contact between Redford and Smith. Smith ends up in the barriers. Redford ends up delayed, and that means that Chris Shepherd is now a lot closer to him than he once was. This, though, is the fast trio. Edmondson, Bugner, Brennan, 4th, 5th, 6th overall. Brennan not really fighting for a championship now, having missed the second round a week ago. Brookston, so he's just after some good results. Edmondson looking for some front grip there, picks up a lot of understeer through Cascades, and that will really kill his exit speed and his momentum down the Lakeside Straight. He hangs on to position, but that's not going to help them catch the cars ahead.
No, I think he was a little bit keen on the throttle there, wasn't he, unfortunately? And again, they're running a little bit wide on the exit, but gets away with it. I think he got away with that more because Jordan Brennan and Scott Bugner were more concerned with themselves than they were with the driver up ahead, as all of a sudden there's a nice fight forming just behind. This is with Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, obviously podium sitter for race 1. He got the 3rd position at the end of the race, even if it was a race-long battle to get there. He's got his hands full just trying to crack into the top 10 and stay there at the moment, because not only does he have Nicky Taylor just ahead of him, he's got Andy Dorman, who I believe currently has the fastest lap of the race, just behind him. So that is not a foregone conclusion that Elliot Dalton-Ayres is just going to move forward and latch onto the back of these 3 drivers. He's going to have to work hard for it.
Yes, he certainly is. Speaking of working hard, Max Edmondson here really having to work hard to keep Scott Bugner at bay. Now, as things stand, I can tell you, after the first race, Scott Bugner is only 2 points ahead of Edmondson for the championship lead. So, yeah, absolutely no chance they're going to work together here. Whichever of the 2 finishes highest up in this race is likely to leave Oulton Park as the championship leader. That was a big squeeze from Edmondson. Bugner's up the inside down to Old Hall Corner. This is a key moment in the championship. They can't afford contact because Jordan Brennan is right there with them as well. And it looks like actually Brennan might benefit from this because it's Edmondson that hangs on to the place, and Bugner, delayed off Old Hall Corner, ends up losing a position. But yeah, that's how close it's getting in the championship now between those two. And actually, as both the cars ahead of him run wide, Bugner has another chance to retaliate as they head towards the hairpin.
Yeah, he's going to be late on the brakes, but he will be on the outside. Is there a Civic-shaped gap that he can manage to squeeze onto at the apex? No, there isn't, but he carries really good momentum ahead of Jordan Brennan, who has those 50 kilos on board. And, of course, that is 20 more than Scott Bugner does. And maybe that's just hindering his exit out of the island hairpin and allowed Bugner to just get his car squeezed in there. Really good racing from all, though, it has to be said. Very entertaining, as Joel Lask no longer fighting with Jordan Brennan, obviously, but it looks like he's fighting with the tyre barrier and may well be fighting for the rest of the race to keep his car out on the track, because that looked like a big hit on his front left suspension.
That's quite big news as well, because Lask is 4th in the champion, in fact level 3rd in the championship with Max Bird. Neither of them having a particularly good race now. Bird 11th and Lask way down in 18th now with a damaged car, as you said. So, yeah, a few of the championship frontrunners actually having a little bit of a tough night of it here at Oulton Park. Kyle Felvers, I remind you, still leads the race. 7 minutes to go with Will Redford in 2nd. Chris Shepherd 3rd, then Edmondson, Bugner, Brennan the order for 4th, 5th and 6th. Mark Redford then is in 7th. We're on board with the 8th place driver Nicky Taylor as he tries to make the move into Old Hall Corner. But again, Mark Redford there with the significantly lighter car, slightly better acceleration over Deer Leap and across the start-finish line. And Nicky Taylor really having to work for this. They both bounce wide over the grass, and for the time being, Redford hanging on.
Yeah, he is hanging on, isn't he? He's doing a good job. His car looks a bit battered and bruised, but do you remember the reverse? Oh my days, that is a big save. That was very good by Mark Redford. A little bit of damage on the car maybe, or just the fact that the tyres are going off, or just the fact that maybe he just got the corner slightly wrong. Either way, the door has been forced open for Nicky Taylor to go up the inside because of that poor run out of Cascades. But it could have been so much worse for Mark Redford there. Really good save.
Now, his son Will, I would argue, is starting to reel in Carl Felvers here. That lead gap is down to just under a second. We'll keep one eye on this as this battle continues to rage for fourth. That's Bugner now ahead of Edmondson. That has big championship implications then. Bugner back ahead of Edmondson, and that will allow him, if it stays like that, to extend his championship lead by a couple of points as we head to the next round. Paul Laramie is pointing the wrong way at his lops, and he'll rejoin behind Dave Buki and Joel Lask. So pretty much towards the tail end of the field. But yes, lots of really, really fierce competition out on track, not just amongst the podium runners and behind, but all the way down the order. Here comes Nicky Taylor back to the outside of Mark Redford, who knows exactly where to place that car. I really thought he'd allowed Taylor through at the hairpin, but somehow Redford is still ahead as they arrive at Lodge Corner, and Nicky Taylor getting backed up now into Elliot Dalton-Ayres slightly.
Yeah, which is obviously very happy for Elliot Dalton-Ayres as he starts flashing the lights for, again, I'm guessing to try and put the drivers off ahead of them. Either that, or I think some of these drivers just have the flash headlights mapped to their accelerator sometimes, because they seem to be doing it every single opportunity. But it's going to create a really nice little battle between three drivers who are known on VRRC for being tough to fight against, as well as Elliot Dalton-Ayres goes very, very wide, basically takes off. This isn't Donington Park, we don't have a runway nearby, but it looked like Elliot Dalton-Ayres was attempting to take off there as Josh Martin takes advantage and slots his way through.
Indeed he does. Back out of the hairpin then. Dalton-Ayres seeing his night unravel slightly here in the reversed grid race then, it must be said. 4.25 minutes of that race still to go. Down towards his lops they head. There go the leaders. There goes Chris Shepherd. Scott Bugner, by the way, as soon as he broke clear of Max Edmondson and Jordan Brennan behind, has set the fastest lap of the race. But look, you can see the way that Edmondson is very much going with him. They're both then catching catching Chris Shepherd, who runs in third position. These, though, are the race leaders, and that is no longer a 1 second advantage for Kyle Felvers. Now, both of these cars, Jack, are running with exactly the same weight. You've got a driver in Kyle Felvers who is very vocal about not really enjoying or getting on well with wheel drive, and in Will Redford, someone who actually drives these cars in real life. So no surprise that towards the end of the race, it is Will who looks the quicker.
No, absolutely not. And I'm just wondering, you have the stats in front of you, Andy. Has Carl Felvers had a podium yet in the Civic Cup or in the reverse grids at all? I'm feeling we've chatted to him recently. That's a big sideways moment for Scott Bugner. And again, massive championship implications as Chris Shepherd is absolutely catapulting himself up ahead of him. And not in a good way, it has to be said. Bugner holding on to this fourth position. Jordan Brennan overtaking Max Edmondson, who may well have just been held up with Bugner coming back on the circuit.
Yes, indeed. He's now going to try and get back Brennan as they head out of Cascades. Brennan, interestingly, went immediately to the left-hand side of the road out of Cascades Corner, not bothering to defend the inside. He tries to sail it around the outside of both of them. That doesn't work, though, and so Edmondson back through. Nibbles there. Oh, contact! Bugner is off the road. The championship leaders have made contact coming out of the island hairpin. There was a tiny bit of contact just as they were accelerating off the corner, and Max Edmondson into the back of Scott Bugner. Might Edmondson live to regret that? Because that was certainly one of those little bits of contact that can get looked at after the race. Now, it's possible that it was a three-way bit of contact as Brennan got into the back of Edmondson, but either way, championship leaders making contact, and Brennan looks like he might be pulling out of the way there for Bugner, is he? Let's just keep following that up the hill. Was that Bugner going back ahead of Brennan? Yes, it was. So perhaps Brennan does feel that he was perhaps more to blame for that.
Yeah, and it's sort of what some of the messages we've been hearing elsewhere as well, that potentially it was a three-way little scrap that ended up causing the contact, put it that way. So Brennan clearly doing what he feels is best, which is allowing Bugner back through, which is what we like to see. Again, we saw that potentially in race number 1. Drivers taking responsibility on straight away, hopefully it won't go to the stewards now and they can just settle it down. It's obviously not what Scott Bugner wanted. He wanted a nice fair fight with Max Edmondson, and I think he was ahead of Max Edmondson when it happened. But there's 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. There's still a long way to go in this championship. Speaking of a long way to go, 1 minute and 30 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking leading a race for the first time this season, Carl Felvers will think it's an absolute eternity. Will Redford goes to the outside, tries to square the corner off, but this battle is all of a sudden ignited.
It absolutely has. Right then, over hilltop we go. A lap and a half to go. Where does Will Redford try and make the move? He's had a go at the hairpin. That didn't work. Has another go down into his lops. That also does not come good for him. So Kyle Felvers, who knows how to defend a race lead, he knows how to win championships, let's remember, may not be getting on well with this car, and in fact it shows there as he runs wide out of Knickerbrook corner, and this is Will Redford's opportunity. The Kinetic Motorsport driver is alongside Felvers as they crest the rise at Clay Hill, and that gives him the inside line for Druids. It looks like it is time up as the race leader for Kyle Felvers. Redford goes through. Now Felvers realistically has one shot at getting back at him here, and it's into this next braking zone at Lodge. He forces Redford to drive defensively down the inside of the road. Felvers turns in late, gets that late apex, tries to get the run down through the dip, and over Deer Leap. He's not going to be level as they get to the start-finish line, but he does have the momentum. Look, again, he forces Redford to defend as we go on to the final lap of the race. Jack, it couldn't be closer.
Yeah, I think you said he's got one opportunity to make this move, and I think he's proven you wrong, because look at that, Will Redford goes very sideways on the apex, and this allows Carl Felvers to potentially get back up to the inside of the flat out right chink there as we go down into the braking zone. It's very wide by Felvers. Is he going to keep it on the white stuff? He just about does. I thought he was about to fly out on the grass there, but he managed to keep it all pointed in the right direction. Luckily, he didn't get the move done on Will Redford, but he's still going to have half a lap to go. A last lap opportunities ablaze here for Carl Felvers as he go wide into Ireland. Will Redford going a little bit of defensive manoeuvring there, just stopping on the apex to don't allow Carl Felvers to get the run down towards his slots. Perfect defensive driving there from Will Redford, who's obviously a driver of these cars in real life. His first full season, in the Civic Cup is this year, and it looks like he's been driving them for a long time here on the sim.
Yeah, he's keeping it on the white stuff really well. He's holding on to the race lead. And Kyle Felvers, I think, might have run out of opportunities now. Felvers yet to get a podium this season, though, so second place would still be a really good result. Will Redford, of course, was actually the winner of that reverse grid race at Brands Hatch. I completely forgot that he held on to win it. So he's on course, actually, to become the first driver not called Max Edmondson to take a second win of the season. Down to Lodge Corner we go. Look at the way that Felvers' car is bouncing and sliding around into Lodge. He is wringing that Honda Civic's neck, but it's not quite going to be enough for the race win. It is a second race victory of the season for Will Redford and Kinetic Motorsport. A brilliant race of the season, that for me, here at Oulton Park. Felvers second, and Chris Shepherd gets himself onto the podium as well. That is also his first podium finish of the Civic Cup season. So a couple of drivers appearing at the front of the field at the end of the race, at least for the first time. Now, for the championship contenders, Edmondson gets fourth, Bugner fifth, and Jordan Brennan had to follow them home in the sixth position. We'll ignore what Dave Buki's doing for now. Mark Redford seventh, Nicky Taylor eighth, Max Bird ninth, Elliot Dalton Ayres. That was jolly good.
It absolutely was, yeah. I mean, I can't believe I said at the beginning of this this evening that you can't overtake round Oulton Park, because they absolutely proved us wrong. Side-by-side action all the way through. I don't think there was a corner that we didn't see side-by-side action, and a lot of the time it was clean as well. Yes, there was a little bit of door banging, but most of the drivers came off unscathed. In fact, over two 20-minute races at Oulton Park, to only have 2 DNFs is quite remarkable, and something we thoroughly didn't expect here tonight. So, yeah, fair play. Well done to all the drivers, and brilliant racing all round.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly, as you say, in that reverse grid race, because we expected carnage, quite frankly. I mean, you look at some of the antics that we saw at Thruxton, for example, a week ago in the reverse grid race, and here on a much tighter, narrower, more challenging circuit, really. We suspected was going to be a bit of a car crash, quite literally, but no, absolutely not. Some really good racing, most of it at the very front of the field, and we are joined now by our podium finishers then, and it is a second win of the season then for Will Redford. He's making these reverse grid race victories a bit of a habit now, but Will, that was a real dogfight out there. We could see you catching Kyle towards the end of the race. Talk us through the last portion of that race as you caught him and then eventually made the move.
Yeah, so I knew I was faster. Obviously, I was gaining on him throughout the race, but I had to be careful because of the cars behind. I didn't want to lose too much time. Obviously, I didn't want to cause a crash or anything. So I was taking it a little bit easy going for the overtake, and I was just, you know, keeping it safe. I didn't want to make a mistake, I didn't want to crash. So I got up to the back of him, and I thought if I drive really close, I might be able to push him into a mistake. And that's what happened. He drove onto the grass coming out of Knickerbrook, and I got the run on him. And then that's what caused us to go side by side, and eventually it came up with me in front.
And it was a brilliant, clean, side-by-side battle, as you said. I mean, not an easy place to do, Oulton Park, and you were running side-by-side through parts of the track that, you know, often we've seen that end in tears for drivers. You've done quite a bit of that even before you caught Kyle, though, because you made quite a bit of progress in the early stages there.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's stacked up at the start, and if you're in the right place at the right time, then you can make a load of places, and that's sort of what happened, you know. I always enjoy going for it on the first lap when everyone's bunched up, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and this is one of those times that it worked out.
The car looked like it was a real challenge out there. Obviously, you're someone who has experience of driving these things for real. How challenging was it to sort of drive on the limit, as you must have had to try and catch Kyle there without making a mistake? Because the cars really seem to be bouncing around quite a bit.
Yeah, the bouncing is, you know, they don't really do that in real life, and it's something you've got to get used to. You can't take curbs as much as you would want to, because your car's just going to bounce, and you lose so much time from it. But the main thing is the tyre wear. The tyre wear on these in the sim is awful, so you've got to really look after your tyres, and when you're carrying weight, it really adds to that. So if you're just smooth with your tyres throughout the race, then you're going to be quicker at the end, and you're going to be able to stay consistent. I think that's somewhere where I'm strong. So I don't have the outright pace in qualifying on you know, fresh tyres, but I can keep the same pace throughout the race, and that's what helped me today.
Certainly did. It helped you to another race win, and might help you move on from the less than ideal week you had at Thruxton a week ago. So apart from that little blip, it's been a really strong showing from you so far this season, and we look forward to seeing how you get on through the second half. Well done, Will.
Thank you.
Will Redford then, winner of our second race, and it's his second victory of the season. It didn't look like it was going to be that way, though, did it, Jack? Because it was Kyle Felvers led for much of the race and ends up finishing second at the end of it.
Yeah, Kyle, it feels like we haven't spoken to you for quite some time. Obviously, you were a regular visitor to the commentary box in the Cayman Cup a couple of weeks ago, but it hasn't quite gone to plan in these Civics for you, has it?
No. I don't really know what to say apart from I hate front-wheel drive cars with a passion. Like, the tyre wear was ridiculous, and I knew Will was way quicker. So I was just trying to drive a clean race, to be honest, and not make too many mistakes. And yeah, I just hit a curb sort of and went onto the grass and tried to stay with him, but didn't crash. So it was just best to just stick behind and get the P2 finish and bring it home safe to the commentary box.
I was going to say, with your adverse view on front-wheel drive cars, to finish on the podium, whether it be a cause of a reverse grid or anything like that, is still a massive achievement then, and something you must be fairly happy with.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be here in any of these races, even from a reverse grid, because me and front-wheel drive cars just don't get along.
Well, you've got a fair few sort of, you know, tracks that you know well, though, coming up. Obviously, we've done quite a few of these tracks before, though. A Croft is one we haven't done so much on before. I know we have Silverstone next, but I want to sort of get your opinion. Obviously, you're a VRRC regular now. Have you done any practice? Have you ever driven Croft? Because I don't believe we've done Croft in a championship I've commentated on.
Yeah, I've driven Croft, but that's because Nikki made us drive it for fun.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I know Croft, so it should be okay, but like I said, I just hate the car, so I'll probably not enjoy it.
Well, fingers crossed for your sake, then, we change cars after this on. We go to something that's rear-wheel drive. Congratulations on the second place, Kyle, and yeah, you never know, we might speak to you next week or the week after.
Thanks, Jack.
Excellent stuff, Kyle Felvers then, coming home in second place. Now, we didn't see quite as much of our third place run as we might have liked, but actually, Chris Shepherd, you ended up having one of the quieter races. Not to say that it was dull by any stretch. You never really get a quiet moment out there in these cars, do you?
Yeah, you're probably right, but it was quite uneventful. I mean, obviously a few overtakes at the start, and I just have to shout out to Dave, because obviously we had side-by-side contact and the foresight ended up in the wall, so I don't know whether it was my fault, whether I veered over slightly and wiped him out, so I'll just apologise ahead of time in case it was. But after that, it was I was literally just driving the track on my own, so I could keep it relatively clean. Did make an error, which cost me a bit of time. Dropped back a couple of positions, managed to get them back, which was only because they spun out, I think. And then yeah, so I was kind of matching. I was catching Carl at some point towards the end of the race, but then I saw that Will was just pulling away, so I just tried to keep it clean, hope that they would start to battle quite a bit, and then I'd maybe have a chance. But no, I didn't. I only got within 3 seconds of them, I think. And to be fair, my pace is so horrendous in this car, which I don't know why, because I don't mind front wheel drive normally. But the only reason I probably kept third place, is because Max, Scott, and Jordan seemed to rather like the idea of battling for fourth, rather than just work together and try and catch everybody. So yeah, so in the end, a podium. Podium's a podium, but yeah, I need a lot of work done.
Well, certainly a podium is a nice little bit of momentum maybe that you can take into the next round. I mean, you've had flashes of pace, it must be said, so let's hope that next week you can potentially piece together a full night of strong results. But great to have you on the podium for the first time this season, Chris, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Super. Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Chris Shepherd then comes home in third position. Now, you may notice we haven't mentioned our Power Maxed driver of the round yet. Normally, Jack, it's one of our Race 2 podium finishers who catches our eye, but actually, we've cast our minds back to the first race of the night when it comes to picking our driver of the round this time, haven't we?
We have indeed, yeah, and it's Elliot Dalton-Ayres who joins me. We've already had a chat with you, Elliot, but this time it's because you're the, I'm sure, pleased and proud recipient of a Power Max Valeting kit. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say, we have had a chat about Race 1. We won't ask too many more questions about it. Talk to us a little bit more on your Race 2, because you seem to just get a little bit caught in all the action, didn't you, somewhat?
Yeah, got a bit bullied at the start, but then managed to find my way through, went off a bit, which was a bit unfortunate. It's like a trampoline when you go off, it's all bouncing. But yeah, kind of just went from there, and then I think I finished P10 or P9, can't remember.
I can't quite remember either, actually, because our timing tower has disappeared because everybody started testing for Silverstone. Speaking of Silverstone, can you take that momentum forward? What are you expecting for the next 3 rounds? Because, of course, we are only halfway through this championship, and you're currently sat in 5th.
Well, Silverstone, it's going to be kind of hard because I don't really like Silverstone, and I don't really mix with it. But Croft, I'm looking to get a podium in Croft because I absolutely love that track.
What's not to mix with Silverstone? There's 4 corners and it's absolutely flat as a pancake. Well, either way, I'm sure you'll surprise us, Elliot. But congratulations on the driver of the round. Fingers crossed we have a chat to you a little later on in the series as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Elliot. And Jack makes a very, very good point, even if Elliot Dalton-Ayres missed it. Silverstone next week, a completely different challenge to Oulton Park, and I think we'll definitely see a shake-up in the order, that's for sure. Speaking of the order, this is the championship standings after the first half of the season. I said it was an important night because we are halfway through the championship now with 6 races down and another 6 to go. And, well, we're pretty much exactly where we were at the start of the season with next to nothing to choose, certainly between our top 2 drivers. Scott Bugner just a solitary point now clear of Max Edmondson for the championship lead, with Max Bird in 3rd, Joel Lask in 4th, but they are some way off the top 2 now, and you sort of sense that with the consistent pace that Bugner and Edmondson are able to show, going to be tough to catch now over the remaining 3 nights of racing. Third to Lask, though, is only 7 points. Lask back to Elliot Dalton-Ayres, only 4 points. Dalton-Ayres then a single point ahead of Will Redford, our most recent race winner, who's getting himself very close now to those all-important top 5 prize-giving positions. Josh Martin then is 6 points further back in 7th place. Eric Axelson, Carl Felvis and Andy Dorman round out the top 10, whilst people like Jordan Brennan and Mark Redford are starting to creep their way back towards that top 10 in the championship standings. And then towards the back there, you can see Nicky Taylor, 24 points on his debut night of racing. I'll be interested to see, Jack, how far up the order Nicky can get. We know he's not going to challenge for the championship. He's 100 points nearly off the championship lead. But I don't know, could he break into the top 10? Wouldn't bet against it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always liked watching Nicky Taylor race, and what I really liked tonight as well, which we don't often see, is he was a guest driver, and he's all of a sudden in that race 2 reverse grid, he saw the drivers he was racing against, championship contenders, like, lining up line and stern to try and carve through the traffic, and he just thought, you know what? You guys can have this one. I'm just here to enjoy my racing, and he sort of jumped out of the way a little bit, which is nice to see. Obviously, because we like to see racing, but we don't want to see people being taken off for no good reason, especially as Oulton Park is such a narrow track. But like you mentioned, Silverstone is not a narrow track. There are only about 4 corners in total. I wasn't lying. You can see them on the track map there for round 4, ironically. But it should offer us up another challenge, another potential slipstreaming track with the likes of Thruxton, obviously last week, showing us just what these cars can do when they get into the slipstream. And then off to Croft on the 1st of June, and of course finishing the season off at Donington Park National. It's been a fantastic evening's worth of racing, and I believe we can very quickly have a look at what else is going on VRRC, and indeed, here it appears. Casual sim racers, you'll enjoy Forza Horizon 5. You can join the Discord, VRRC Discord, to have a chat and see everything that goes on with Forza Horizon 5 here at VRRC. If you enjoy the championships that you see here on a weekly basis now on VRRC, then you can always get involved by joining the Discord or going to the website. They also do time attacks. I believe they're even doing a special Bridge to Gantry or something, or whatever it's called. I think it's a Nordschleife Tourist Harten run in a BMW M2 at the moment. For the prizes of that are actually 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. They're all for varying degrees of monitors, I believe. So there's 3 monitors up for grabs, 1 for 1st, 1 for 2nd, 1 for 3rd. So that's a really cool little cool competition to get involved in. And they have the fun races on a Saturday night, of course, as well. That's free to anyone. You don't even need to be a member of VRRC. You don't need to know anybody who's involved. Just click the link down below to the website and it'll show you how to get involved with the fun race. Then you have a set of Corsa Competizione weekly endurance races. You have Dirt Rally 2.0, weekly stages of Rallycross. And I believe we have iRacing starting up soon as well. So basically anything to wet your whistle here at the sim, on the sim. VRRC have you covered.
Yes, they do, and absolutely recommend that you jump on to the VRRC Discord, where it's a great community of people always happy to help you as well if you have any questions when it comes to what you should be doing if you want to get involved in sim racing yourself. That is it though for Oulton Park tonight. Half of the championship done already. It's flying by, and just a single point separating our top 2 drivers in the championship. Be sure to join us in a week's time, same place, for our 4th night of racing at the super fast, super exciting Silverstone National Circuit, where myself, Andy McEwen, Jack Oliphant, my co-commentator, Dave Marshall, our race director, Andy Ringland, the clerk of the course, and of course Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast. We'll all be here to help you bring you the best of the action from the 4 rounds of the championship. Well, Oulton Park certainly has served up a pair of hugely entertaining racing. What does the second half of the championship have in store for us? Join us next week. Find out.